Yeah, Shalom Akim, Kahalayim La Yahaba Shemi Al Shabbat Shem Kodash, and double honors to great Muslim apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone. Yara Tazar, that you find this video edifying and also exhorting as well. But Yara Tazar, bro, keep this one to the point because the point is easy to understand. As I named the video, the reset means, which of course is reference to this reset here from the channel Clive Thompson. I haven't done much research on the guy, but as soon as YouTube recommended this video, I decided, okay, let me watch this, and the I'll see what's up with what he's saying. But anyways, as I named the video, the reset means the old currency is meaningless, or is worthless rather, or was worthless. If you assume that we're in those times, which we are in those times anyways. It's just a matter of when the Most High will make Esau to then leverage whatever chaos that he allows him to create, a black swan event or some kind of a disaster, in order to trigger this reset, where everyone in their minds will say, okay, it makes sense to have this reset. But anyways, let's Yaratazama, let me begin with this preset. Then I'll start with this video, because this preset is pretty much the summary of why I'm making this video. So Yaratazar will probably be short, to the point. Right, so it says in Proverbs 11 and verse 4, riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivereth from death. So of course that righteousness is rooted in our knowledge, our understanding, and our faith fundamentally in Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So that's what's actually going to deliver us, not these vanities of which are of the world, material possessions or whatnot. These things are really just tools to use. Really, money, you can liken it as a tool to use for a temporary time. The reason why I say that is because Esau's kingdom is a temporary time, man. So there ain't no point, as the scriptures say, where, hold on. The earth is moth dust corrupt. Lay up your treasures above. Let me even type that out. Lay up treasures. Should give me something, man. Okay, let me type that out then. Let's see. Alright, thought they all shy. Alright, so this is Matthew 6 verse 19. Matthew 6 and 19, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. Verse 21, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Heart referring to the mind, where your focus would be. Because at the end of the day, the treasures upon this side, which, to use modern day terms, whatever savings or material possessions you have on this side is only for a temporary time. Now, of course, if you were to let's break it down here. Of course, if you're to take this strictly, it means that we'd all be broke and poor and begging for money. So of course, hence why the scriptures say, give me neither poverty or riches. So of course, technically, if you want to really get into it, yeah, we have a little bit of savings here and there, but we know through this scripture right here that I just read, that it's temporary, man. It says, and it's corruptible, really. And in the video, I'm gonna get into it. So lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, you see, and where thieves break through and steal, man. For example, Germany, people had, I think recently, 2025, around December, even in Germany or another place, well, it's in one of the European countries, where, people got their belongings, their prized belongings, if that's the way to say it, the most how can I say this? You know those things that you put within a bank, you know, like they call it saves over there. I think in America they call it saves as well, where you know maybe you might have some gold coins or gold bars that you may have bought, you know, and then you want to keep it somewhere, you know, safe, supposedly safe, which the banks aren't really safe, by the way, just to let you guys know. Because again, all it takes is really a blackout and all that currency, which is really digits in your money, the illusion of it, it's all gone. People are going to realize, oh, damn. So, how are you going to feed yourself? So, anyways, that's why faith fundamentally is important when serving Yahweh Shem Yahushua, because in that time we know that Yahweh Shem Yahushua will feed us. Going into Isaiah 63, and I believe Isaiah 65 rather, and verse what's the name? Verse 13, I believe. So through these scriptures, we're really in that state of certainty, man. Because again, the highest level of faith is really just to know something as though it's already happened, anyways. You know, when Yahweh Shem Yahshua has declared something to us just through these scriptures, we know it. You know, no doubt at all. You know, as the scriptures say. But anyway, so Isaiah 65 and verse 13. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, the Most High, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servants, you know, we're the ones serving Yahushua, we're the ones serving Yahweh Shem Yahushua, my servant shall drink, and ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. You know, so of course, in that time, man, you know, I remember you know, talking to a friend recently as well. You know, we were just talking about just catching up. And then he told me about you know, don't be afraid to accept dirty water when you're in a drought, man. In my mind, I was thinking, what if I have a clean fountain? Because that's the case that we got here, man. What if I already got a clean fountain, but you got no idea about it? And that clean fountain is really Yahweh Shem Yahushua providing us in that time of drought, metaphorically. You know, we're talking about, you know, personal stuff and several things, but the point is, you know, what he said, that really shows you the result of how people will be in the world, man. If you're accepting dirty waters because you ain't got a clean fountain, man. And when I say a clean fountain, I'm talking about Yahweh Shem actually providing us, you know, food and water, you know, metaphorically speaking, in those times of need. But for those of the world, they're going to be scurrying for, well, you know, as Klaus Schwab said, you know, bugs. You know, they're going to be scurrying for GMO food, genetically modified organisms, you know, genetically modified foods, and pretty much foods that are just bullshit. Why would you go for bullshit when you got some clean food, you got clean water that Yahweh Shem Yahshua would then send to you, man? You know, you could have an angel to send you food, you know, in that time to come. Hence why faith, again, as I say again, is essential, man. You know, there's just something when he said it, you know, it stayed in my mind for a bit because I'm like, damn, you know, this is how the world's gonna be, man. You know, they're gonna be flipping, scurrying, rushing for bullshit. You know, that's not even profitable to them. Whereas for us, we're gonna have a clean fountain, man. You know, so as I quote again from you know, a friend, you know, from school, really. But you know, as he said, you know, he said, don't be afraid to go for dirty water. Roughly phrase what he said, but I know that's the meaning of it. You know, don't be afraid to go for dirty water in a drought. So he's saying basically get what you can, which, yeah, you know, there is reasoning, but of course, if you already got a clean fountain, which again is our source being Yahweh Shem Yahushua providing us water anyways, why then would I bother with dirty water though? You see? But the thing is, if you ain't got faith, if you ain't gonna get access to, if you ain't got faith in Yahweh Shem Yahushua, you ain't gonna have access to these the clean fountains, man. Again, metaphorically speaking. I mean, quite literally, one of the brothers could find a clean waterfall to drink water from or something, or maybe even a clean fountain. And nevertheless, as I read here, Isaiah 65 and verse 13, therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, the Most High, Behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. So again, those who ain't got faith, those of the world, that'll be to their own detriment, man. But yeah, you know what? Let me get back to the video, Yarat, as well, then get more precepts. Alright, so as the guy named it, Clive Thompson, that's his name. It says the global currency reset is almost here. What it means for your wealth, the winners and losers. Now let's see. Let's see if I can put the captions on as well.
Hello, dear friends. My name is Clive Thompson, and here is Clive Jr.
Hello.
Today is the 30th of December, 2025. It's Tuesday. It's the last trading day of the year in many markets. Today, we're going to be talking about something called the global currency reset, which is coming for sure.
The global currency reset.
The global currency reset. Well, there's two parts. The first part is the currency reset. A currency reset is when they change the currency for a new one. And they would do that in a sort of emergency or hyperinflation or a bond crisis or a currency crisis. And when it's global, it doesn't just happen in one country, it happens in all the countries within a very short space of time. We're going to talk about the global currency reset. Now, it could come next year, it could come anytime. So,
which again, just reminding you, he made a video a few years before 2026, so-called New Year. So he's referring to 2026 as the next year.
Question which many of you will ask is, when is it coming and when will I know it's coming? And we'll talk about that as well. But it's a bit like life. You're going to die for sure. And the global currency reset is going to come for sure. You just don't know when. And you don't know when you're going to die. And so in life, you think you're going to live for a long time, no matter what your age is. You don't expect to die tomorrow or next week or next year or 10 years from now or 20 years from now, depending on your age. You expect to live for a very long time. And then, guess what? Suddenly, unexpectedly, and without warning, along comes a disease or an accident. And suddenly, everything you've learned, just when you were getting used to how things work, gets taken away in a flash. Well, the global currency reset will be like that. It will come without any warning. Nobody will know it's going to happen until it's too late.
Yeah, kind of like which really, those of us who are spiritual, you know, you will get an insight into certain things. You know, the Rakar Hakodash. You know, some brothers will receive visions, some brothers will receive, you know, dreams, things of that sort. You know, even just you know, guys who are in the know. even you know, guys out there on the top, you know, on the left hand side, of course, they're gonna know that, well, they're the ones creating it anyways. You know, these top elite families. You know, but nevertheless, you know, certain information can trickle down. Despite that, you know, through Yahweh Shimi Al-Shai will be able to have an insight into these things before they happen anyways. Which, you know, to prophesy means to know before, innit? You know, you gotta have that foresight. Anyways, he did mention something though, like some kind of a disease being like a trigger, or let me.
You expect to live for a very long time. And then, guess what? Suddenly, unexpectedly, and without warning, along comes a disease or an accident. And suddenly, everything you've learned, just when you were getting used to how things work, gets taken away in a flash. Well, the global currency.
Yeah, that's how it's going to be. I know that's what he's saying. It'll be a shock to many people of the world who are you don't really have this knowledge, you know, of the scriptures, the true understanding of the Bible. You know, they're gonna be scared. That's the point.
Reset will be like that. It will come without any warning. Nobody will know it's going to happen until it's too late. It's like being told by your doctor, you've got a month to live. and you then panic, but it's too late to put your affairs in order because there's too much to organize. But what you can now take some action now to prepare yourself for what's coming, not knowing when it's going to come. But what the action you take will be good, whether it comes or not next year or the year after or the year after that or 10 years from now. But there are some additional actions you'll be able to take. Just see the time. There are some additional actions you'll be able to take in the days preceding the currency reset, if you happen to know it's coming. But I don't think anyone's going to tell you it's coming. And don't forget, everyone else will be trying to take the same kind of actions at the same time as you. So there'll be a bit of a panic all at once if you know it's coming. So what is a global currency reset and how will we know it's coming? Well, we all know that the governments of this world are massively over-indebted. It's like a family with a credit card. They've borrowed too much money and every month they spend more money than they can collect in taxes. Sorry, not more. Sorry, the government's spending more money than it collects in taxes. The family's spending more money than it earns. Then, one day, the debt comes to you and you have to repay it, but you don't have the capital to repay, so you borrow more capital to repay, and you borrow more interest to repay. Same with the government. Every year, it never, ever repays its debt. It borrows more just to repay the debt. So every year, the debt goes up because the government borrows more and more, and the debt has reached unsustainable levels. There's many, many famous people who've acknowledged that this debt level that we have in the world, in the Western world, I'm not singling out any one country, it's broadly similar in most Western countries. Everyone knows that the debt level is unsustainable, but the hope and the plan is to keep kicking the can down the road so that the problem will kind of be pushed onto your successors or another year. But one day the crisis will come. And when that crisis comes, and I believe this is what's likely to happen the next time, they will issue a new currency at the time in emergency, and the plans must be already laid for doing this, so they can do it very quickly. I mean, obviously, one of the ways they could issue new currency is to implement the central bank digital currency.
Yeah. So of course, CBDCs, that's like you can liken it as the monetary system, but which would be a very good match, very suitable match with the implant, man. The CHI to the P. In that time, man, you go know for real. When they implement this, family of the world will hit hard, man. Because it's like the very system they're going to have to implement, they don't want any hindrance to it, man. Which the prophets, of course, as we bring out this word, as we say what the MOTB is, they're gonna be like, whoa, we gotta block these lot. And then of course that's when the Most High would then withdraw his prophets from the streets and from the internet, really. And even the internet could have a reset too. To be fair, it will have a reset. They gotta have a reset because there's a lot of truth out there in the internet too. Even ChatGPT, we were supporting Akim as well. When the apostles bring it out during camp as well, especially when based upon GMS in comparison to the other camps who don't preach the truth. But anyways, going back to the point though, where he said this new currency CBDCs, when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. he mentioned, if you search up, you can search up, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He talked about wearables, man, being something of the future. People using it to pay for things, and essentially to be like a tracker as well. And of course, wearables, typically what comes to mind is like the smartwatches, whatnot. I got on my other phone here, but let's see. I'm gonna just read it out. Let's see, just a key point. All right, let's hold on. All right, I'll get it from a little article here. But yeah, from the wearables, that could be like the first phase. After the first phase is then implemented, shortly after the second phase could then be I say second phase, but the final phase could be that chip implant, man. So I'm just reading from an article from ABC News. It's on my other phone, that's why you guys can't see it. But I'll link it under the video, and I'll also link this video under this current one that I'm making. Right, so ABC News, it says RFK Jr. wants everyone to use wearables. What are the benefits and the risks? It says here, last week health. Let me get to the point, man. So last week, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced the agency was launching a campaign to encourage all Americans to use wearables to track health metrics. Wearables come in the form of watches, bands, rings, patches, and clothes that can be used for a variety of reasons, including monitoring glucose levels, measuring activity levels, track heart health, and observe sleeping patterns. So of course, there's more of a more of a secret agenda there. If you're able to track all these things, you know when's best to strike a person, strike them when they're weak. But that's just one perspective, man. But yeah, that's the point. It could be a case of that where it's like, all right, phase 1, wearables. Last phase would then be the chip, Neuralink, the DARPA. But anyways, let's see. Let me get a scripture now. This is Revelation 13 of verse 16. It says, and he causeth all, of course, the beast, NATO and the EU being that representation. Well, the beast being the representation of the NATO and the EU system. So it says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. With this type of condition, a global reset will be required in order to make, all right, rich and poor, free and bond, small and great, whoever the person is, to receive a mark on their right hand or in their foreheads, man. Well, that's for those of whom have put their trust in Esau Edom's system. Now, so verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So of course, that's really, the main point is really the mark of the beast being the chip implant, man. So that NATO and the EU system being used to then implement it as well. Of course, they're going to make sure that a whole load of people are going to get into that. But anyways, let's continue. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number 600, 603 score and 6, which is 3 6s, representing Esau Edom in this case. Which really, 6 represents man as well. So point is really verse 16 where it says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in the forehead. The global reset will be a trigger so that people would then be inclined, especially psychologically, considering the state of the world in that time, which we're very close to, by the way. The year 2026 will be like the explosion for that. But we watch and we observe. But yeah, that's the point, Akim. It requires a reset to be able to enforce all people, rich and poor, free and bond, small and great, to be able to receive that mark. But for those who have the faith, their faith rooted in Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the Most High will preserve us from the hour of temptation. Yahushai will preserve us from the hour of temptation, as it says in Revelation 3, verse 10, and I'll get back to the video after this. Alright, so Revelation 3 and verse 10, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, the understanding of the scriptures, the commands that Yahushua said, go out there and preach, teach, He says, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, and try them that dwell on the earth. So it says, verse 11, behold, I come quickly, hold that fast, that which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. You see, because we have an incorruptible crown, man. Not like the world who have a corruptible crown. So they go after vanities, but we actually go after true value. Anyways, let's get back to the video here as well.
Central bank digital currency, known as CBDC, they could happen the next time. They will issue a new currency at the time in emergency, and the plans must be already laid for doing this, so they can do it very quickly. I mean, obviously, one of the ways they could issue new currency is to implement the central bank digital currency, known as CBDC.
That's why Trump is also pushing for the 6G telecommunication network. Because with the 6G, it matches very well with that implant technology, man. So keep that in mind.
They could bring that out in a flash. But when they bring out the new currency in a crisis, because they have to, they will probably say everybody can change a certain amount, let's say 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 or 20,000, some figure, but no more. Because they don't want you using the old currency to speculate against the country.
Now, what he's referring to is a conversion. Let's say for example, over here in Britain, what's it called? I think they called it the Bitcoin a few years ago. The Bitcoin, but let's just get a theoretical here. Let's say the new currency for Britain, for that region, Britain, they use Bitcoin. Yeah, and then of course the old British pound, which is in your old bank account, which goes in the old system. All these other banks, like Halifax, Barclays, HSBC, Lloyds, things of that sort. They say, all right, you have until the end of the month, the 30th or the 31st of the end of the month that you're in. They say, okay, you're limited to let's say 20,000. You can only do a maximum of 20,000 per month, or even whatever amount per month to convert to the new currency, but you can't convert more than that amount. Either that, or if they go really strict, they can say, all right, from your old currency you can only convert 20,000 max, man. That's it. And then, because I remember one of the brothers also talked about programmable currencies where they could put a time limit on the money, on a new currency where you only got a certain amount of time to use the money. I believe I actually thought Black Mirror had an episode on this, but I think it was similar, but not really, not to the T, like not really in terms of this type of scenario that we're watching here, from this guy Clive Thompson. But yeah, but the point is, there'll be a limit to the money being used, man. That's what he's saying. So that's just me putting an example right there. There will be either limited time. There will be limited time to convert the money from the old currency, from your old bank account, to the new one. And as I said, it could be in phases, where it's wearables, and then from wearables there'll be the implant, which is the final phase. Or it could even be a case of phones, then wearables, then implant. It depends how the Most High has Esau play it, man. What the Most High makes Esau do.
So the new currency will have some restrictions on it. It's a bit like the old ration coupons we used to have after the Second World War. Many countries in Europe had what's called ration coupons, where if you wanted to buy a pound of butter, you had to have a ration coupon to go with it. What that meant was it didn't matter whether you were a millionaire or a billionaire, you couldn't buy your pound of butter unless you had a ration coupon. So what was the real currency at the time? The only one you could spend was the ration coupon. Of course, you had to have.
Yes, as we read before earlier on, Proverbs 11 and verse 4, riches profit not in the day of wrath. So when the Most High sends these judgments, especially when the global currency reset begins, riches won't be profitable, man. It's a tool to use for a temporary time. That's all it is.
The real money too, but you couldn't spend your real money unless you had the ration coupon to go with it. Well, if we get into a currency crisis or a bond market crisis, a debt crisis, or a civil unrest or something like that, there will be some sort of rationing of the currency in the form of a new currency coming in, where you can't change the old currency to the new currency except within certain limits and under certain rules. Now, the problem with that is that we'll get to a situation where those who have a large amount of the old currency suddenly are very frustrated because they can't use their old currency for anything useful. The government will be delighted because all of the government debt is repayable in the old currency, which will now not be usable by anybody. So to all intents and purposes, the old currency will become defunct. Of course, it will have a promise that one day we'll lift the restriction and you'll be able to change your old currency for the new currency. But you kind of know that day will never really come. So on day one, when they bring in this new currency, the old currency will probably trade on the black market, on the secondary market, at 70 cents on the dollar. 3 months later, you'll be lucky to get 20 cents on the dollar. And a year later, you probably get 0 on the dollar.
So the point is just to kill the old system, man. Demolish the old system. You know, economically, financially, socially. And yeah, let me get this precept now. We'll close it up. This is Proverbs 23 and verse 5. Wilt thou set thine eyes upon that which is not? For riches certainly make themselves wings. They fly away as an eagle towards heaven, man. So, of course, this just going to become, there'll be a time where it becomes worthless, man. Especially with inflation. You know, they're just going to keep increasing it. To the point where even the buying power of an individual will be lowered, man. You know, so really, as it says, if for riches certainly make themselves wings, they fly away as an eagle towards heaven, man. So at the end of the day, the value of them will diminish. You know, hence why it says, you know, fly away also. So that's one way of seeing it as well, considering the global reset. But anyways, Yara Tazar, you found it edifying and exhorting. You know, something to build up your knowledge, which is what edify means, and also encouraging as well to increase your faith in Yahweh Shem Yashai. So call Halayim now, Yahweh Shem Yashai Basreka Kudash, and double honest scrapers of the apostles. Shalom.